Welcome back to the Pat McCrory Show, 9:35, our weekly You Can Make a Difference segment. And today in studio, we have two local police officers who know a little thing or two about what we're doing, Governor.
Yeah, not only do they ride around the streets of Charlotte, walk around the streets in our neighborhoods and residential and commercial districts to protect us, but they have their own podcast to tell us the real life of a police officer. Why don't you introduce them?
Yeah, in studio today, we have Jason Peets and Chad Webster, the hosts of Please Pass the Bacon is the name of the podcast, right, fellas?
That's correct.
Already making me hungry.
I assume Pass the Bacon has a reference to something.
You could infer that. Yeah, that's fair.
I come from the baby boom generation.
There you go.
Bacon, let's see. Bacon comes from what?
Pigs.
Pigs.
Yeah.
And
We're
I
owning
believe
that.
they have used that term to describe a police officer once or twice before in the past.
That was the past.
Yes,
That's right.
Yes.
No doubt about it.
We're trying to take some ownership of that.
I
of that
love
word.
this idea.
Yeah.
I love this idea because I've always wanted to do in fact, I'm going to have you guys back. I've always wanted to have people hear about the everyday life of a police officer because all we hear about are the extreme incidences of police.
It's always in
Right.
times of crisis. So that's exactly what we're trying to do is put officers in a human light, which I think is what's missing a lot.
Peopleizing them.
Yeah.
That's our term. We peopleize the police. You know, a little more than just locking people up or bad incidents or bad press or bad things on social media. We're going to say, hey, we're taking the bacon and we're going to make something good.
I love that idea. You know, I when I was a city councilman and mayor and governor, I would ride with the police once a month. And, of course, I'd always say, show me the action. One thing I learned is there are a lot of inaction.
Yes.
There's a lot of boredom.
Lots of
There's a
downtime.
lot of monotony. There's a lot of office work.
It's a lot of trying to figure out where we're going to eat that day. I mean, that's a big part
I do
of it.
recall that.
I mean, as you need to stay dry.
Stay dry.
You got to eat.
Yeah.
And you got to get off on time. Those are the three biggest things I think you need to. Well, of course, being safe and doing your job.
Of course. You've got to throw in those other things since we're on live radio.
Right.
But stay dry.
Stay dry. You got to make sure you eat, and you want to go home safe on time.
Yeah, a lot less like a TV show than what TV shows portray.
So tell us what you typically do on your podcast.
Well, we try to do a couple of different things. We're starting with stories and interviews with police officers who kind of have what are not stereotypical people who get into law enforcement. Like, not everybody's former military. Not everybody went and got their criminal justice degree. Some people English degrees. Some people were.
Some people don't even have degrees.
Yeah, some people with no degrees. And that's our thing. We're trying to let people know, officers, regular people who just chose this profession. They're not always people who grew up 6 years old, wanted to be a cop from that time forward.
We were both really old. I was 27, and Jason, you were 30.
Yeah,
I mean, we were late starters for
Wow,
this
y'all
career.
were old.
Yeah,
We're even
Which
more
is
a lot
older
older now.
Which is probably good because you had a little more wisdom and experience before you went through the academy and put on a badge. Because that's one issue we have is you have very young people with not a lot of experience becoming police officers, and they have to learn on the job to get wisdom.
Yeah, I know that benefited me. I would not have been ready at 21, 22, 23.
No way.
30 is when I was ready.
So what got you ready for this podcast idea? Did you two come up with it while riding around thinking about what restaurant you're going to eat at?
we're
that
talking
day?
They
about
listened to your
bacon.
show. They listened to your show and they took notes.
That was
We're gonna
probably
give the
What
government
not to do.
We do a lot of videos at work, and we do a lot of community engagement, and we were just talking like, hey, Jason, I feel like we both felt like there was something that we were supposed to do or needed to do, and we just didn't know what it looked like yet. I said some dumb idea like a variety show, where we're like, who's gonna hire two cops to do a variety show, and I don't even know what that looks like. And then
It's called Cop Rock. It was on ABC about 20 years ago.
yeah, and it's not back. So so one of our buddies, a fellow officer, says, hey, why don't you guys do a podcast? We're like,
That was it. Ding, ding, ding.
here we are.
You guys are even talking alike.
Let's do
it's like
bacon.
a Saturday Night Live skit.
Have you already done several episodes, or is it just starting, or where are you in that mix?
We just dropped episode 3.
3.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So where can we find those?
You can go to your favorite podcast podcast player, Please Pass the Bacon, and also on YouTube. You can search those and they'll come up. That's it.
We weren't going to do YouTube because we definitely have radio faces, but we said, hey, some people do like to watch.
Well,
Hey,
welcome to the club.
No offense, Governor.
For
no
you
offense.
guys, no, I won't take it. You guys are studs. Come on. You guys are studs. And one thing I learned when I was governor, that my protection unit, the women loved my protection unit.
They must have looked different than us.
Yeah. It must have been tall,
It's the
dark, and
uniform.
handsome.
You guys take the uniform. It's the uniform.
Well, and that's one of the things that we talk about on the podcast is how different we look when we're not wearing that uniform, because the majority of our week is spent out of the uniform.
Oh, and that's one of the things we talked about on the last podcast was we were out to eat, and this guy came up and said, what did he say to us? Something like,
about,
oh, look at
wow,
flat top and bald guy, intimidating guys.
You guys are intimidating.
And we're like, he has no idea. We were just figuring out what bacon we're going to review on the next podcast.
I was like, dude, I'm 5'0". I'm not intimidating at all. And he was like, what did we say, bald guy? and
Okay,
flat
let me
top?
ask you a question real quick. When you have the uniform on, you're pulling up, pulling over a car, is there a certain attitude that you have to have that you don't have back at home? You know what I'm saying? And like the highway patrol has that attitude when they come up to the car. They're trained to act like we are bad.
Well, and you got to think their nearest backup could be minutes away, not seconds, but minutes. So
they could be
in the middle of nowhere.
Further,
even
further
right in
than
the middle
that.
of nowhere. But so they come up to the car like they're not smiling. They're not going, hey, how's your day doing?
Right.
They've got a serious look. Do you guys have a certain attitude that you have to have at certain incidences or anything to show you're in control?
I don't think it's a control thing. I think you have to have a certain presence to start, but
that's a good way to put
we
it.
try to keep it. I mean, I always introduce myself and then let them know immediately why I pulled them over, so there's no guess. I want them to know who I am, who I work for, and why I stop them. And then I try to keep it as calm as I can be. And then
there's an element of de-escalation on the front end. Exactly.
So when you go home then and you're with your friends and family, do they remind you, hey, you're not a cop here?
Oh, I tell them to get down on the ground and put their hands behind their back. I wish.
Yeah.
I mean, do some family members remind you, hey, I know you're a big shot out there in your big car.
It's less that, but my wife always gets on me about like if one of the kids falls and gets hurt, and there's a reaction that most people would have, like, oh, I don't have that. And so my wife doesn't always appreciate my reaction or non-reaction.
Mine always yells at me when I yell at the kids. Like, you can't use your police voice when you're telling the kids to clean their room. I'm like, oh.
They do listen, though.
Sorry,
when you do
babe.
that.
I was just about to ask you.
That is great.
What topics that you cover, or the spectrum. And I was just reading. It says interviews, humor, crime prevention, tips, and freshly cooked bacon reviews.
Yes.
You know, when I'd come home from being governor for the week, I'd come home and, my chest is all out. I'm the big bad governor, and I'd open the door, and my wife I'd hear her in the other room go, pick up your damn socks and go walk the dog.
Bam, right
And
back
I
to
go,
earth.
Back down to earth.
I don't think you know who I am.
Do you know who you're talking to?
She says, exactly. Yes, I do.
Well, and one of the fun things about the podcast is we do get to try. We rate a new bacon every episode.
Really?
So we have it cooking when our guest
Do
gets there.
do the millennials and others who listen understand the correlation with bacon and pigs? Do they get it?
I guess we'd have to ask them. I hope so. But if not, who doesn't at least like the smell? That's what Jason. Who doesn't like the smell of bacon?
And that's why the title, Please Pass the Bacon. Everybody loves bacon. Even if you
That's right.
are a
You add bacon to
vegetarian.
anything.
I love it.
Anything. Even if you're a vegetarian, you at least like the smell.
What about your colleagues? How has the response been from other police officers? Do they listen?
I'll let you take that,
Well, no, I
Jason.
think it's been positive. You never know how that's going to be taken.
Yeah.
We're not saying our audience is not intended to be for police officers, but
Right.
it's not a police officer podcast to talk about cop stuff. It's more for what we would say like the bell curve, the upper half of a bell curve. And we want, I guess you could say the silent majority. We want to reach out to them and say, hey, these are humans, these are dads,
Right.
these are business owners, these are manuscript writers, just the gamut of people. And so...
And our
didn't-
last two guests, I mean, Melendez, he wants to write movies. He's a
Right.
script writer, and then Caleb wants to be a race car driver. I mean,
on the side, yeah.
These are guys that have a lot of talents and desires outside of being in that uniform.
I love the idea, guys. All right, real quick, how do you pull up this podcast?
Well, I'll ask them that question. Because you said it's on YouTube. And where else?
Podcast player, Pass the Bacon, search it, and it'll pop up on
If you
your-
have an iPhone, there's an Apple Podcast app. You just click that and type in "Please Pass the Bacon."
You know, I want to officially state, I mean, this is a real honor for me to do this, but you're officially the heroes of the week on the Pat McCrory
my
Show.
gosh.
I mean, have you had a bigger honor than this?
Absolutely.
This is
not, never.
huge. Is there a certificate or anything I
No,
can take home?
no,
Oh,
it's
This
too
is
cheap.
bigger than what
I think-
happened firstborn, right?
I think you just put the
We'll
podcast
send
on
you.
the web.
We'll send you a recording. No, we probably won't even send you a recording of this. We'll tell you to look it up on the internet. Just Google Pat McCrory Show, and you'll hear this. You can replay this on your podcast.
okay, great. Thank
But
you, sir.
You're officially heroes of the week on the
Awesome.
Pat McCrory Show.
We appreciate it,
Well
sir.
deserved,
Thanks
and we
for having
do
us.
thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Thank your
for having
families.
us.
too.
Jason Peets and Chad Webster, they host Please Pass the Bacon, the new podcast. I can't wait to go listen to this. This is going to be fun.
And they're
Thanks.
going